Welcome to Expedient Means with Lin A. Wei on Time Monk Radio. Lin currently resides in China and is the founder and head teacher of Guizhen Philo-Cultural Society. He has extensive experience in Buddhist and Taoist meditation, Qigong, martial arts, and traditional Chinese medicine. To learn more about Lin, please visit his website at www.guizhenhui.net. This program is dedicated to exploring various facets of these teachings with hopes of making the knowledge more widely accessible. Thank you for joining us. All right, welcome back, Lin. And today I think we were going to discuss Chan, or as most people know it, Zen Buddhism. Just wondering if you can give a brief introduction on the practice.
Cool. Well, the Chan name is Chinese language. They named it Chan. The Zen is a Japanese dhyana meditation or dhyana practice. That would be, I'm probably saying it wrong because I don't read Sanskrit. So dhyana practice is meditation. This is utilizing deep concentration or mindfulness practices. It entails a lot of stuff basically, but as a general idea, excuse me, as a general idea, for those who either are new to the name Chan or Zen, or have just a small idea about them, general idea is basically it's about application of your mind apart from there being a time, meaning a past, a present, and a now. Because if you're thinking of a now, applying your mind to I am in the now, so let me worry about things quote unquote now, you're still creating a view of separation, or you're still empowering a view of separation. So the Chan is about breaking through these views we hold about a time difference, or things we hold about a view of a self. When I say time difference, I'm basically meaning we always put ourselves in a construct of time. I don't have the time for this, or I have the time for that, or there's not enough time to, do certain things in the day. We need more time in the day. Everyone's worried about time. So basically when we're doing something, we usually get bored, or we're thinking about what we're going to do 2-3 hours later, and it takes away from us, actually. It's kind of like stealing our energy, or stealing our substance, or our essence, you can say. So the Chan is like bringing your mind to one point. In what you're doing, you're just doing what it is you're doing. It's not worrying about how you feel about what you're doing, or what's going on about what you're doing. Go ahead.
I guess the most common practice people tend to associate with Chan or Zen is where the mind holds a riddle and tries to, I don't know if solve the riddle is a good way to put it, but basically just to ponder that riddle. And I don't know if the point even is to solve the riddle. I think the point is more just to keep the mind distracted. But could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, basically there's certain practices in Chan. One of them is holding a huatao, or a word head. And what that basically is it's like a riddle. It's formulated. The language that's used in Chan is a specific style. It's formulated in a way to have the mind feel like it's tied up and then untied. You're holding your idea, your mind, on a specific sentence. You're not reciting the sentence. It's the application used for the investigating what that title is pointing to. Now, the investigation, that process is important. So the idea that we're holding our mind to kind of ties our energy up. Not in a bad way. It's not the tie up like binding where you can't move. It's the narrowing, or it's the tightening of your mind, holding it in one specific place, the narrowing of your attention into one specific point so it doesn't go off into every other area. Like being bounded, but it's not the binding in a bad way. It's kind of like fighting fire with fire in this aspect, or poison with poison. Poison being, we have false thinking. The mind is always thinking of something, daydreaming, or going off all over the place on sensations and whatnot. So we're using another false idea, which is a sentence, words, another thought, to fight our other thoughts. But it's not that it's fighting against the other thoughts. It's allowing us to focus on this one thought. So everything else doesn't interrupt us, and we can build concentration strength, or which is called samadhi, concentration power. So that is the idea of holding a riddle, so-called riddle, in Chan practice or Zen practice. Same thing. Also, actually getting to realize what that riddle means. Solving it. The solving basically is, it's many-fold, and I say this because if we're asking what was our face before we were born, then we may find our investigation bringing us to seeing all the people who influenced us over our whole lifetime, and all the views that we placed upon ourselves about who we think we are. And then finally, when we get past all that, and those things aren't influencing us, or at least we recognize the root of it, or what would happen is, there's still an idea of an I. So we thought we made a breakthrough, and then we stop investigating. We're like, I got it. I know who it is. It's the me. It's the I without all these people's influence. Though it's almost, right, it's still not quite there yet. So it has to go a little deeper. And then we're breaking into why we feel we have the view of an I. It goes into these kind of in-depth investigations or researching into your own mind about your mind, So the solving of the riddle is that it does get solved, but it doesn't get solved with intellect, and it doesn't get solved with what we assume an answer which should be. It's something of more of the sun comes out in the morning, you open the shade, and all of a sudden you get blinded by the sun. It's just that much of a realization that there's a sun outside. So thus the realizing that the pure mind, that true mind, that's free from false thinking, is pretty much like that. It just kind of slaps you right in the face, or blinds you, for the sake of saying, kind of like blinds you and says, oh my God, that's just so strong. And when you get blinded by a bright light, your mind right at that point doesn't say, my eyes. You get blinded first. Then your reaction starts with your thinking, saying, my eyes hurt, I can't see. So at that initial reaction, when there's no discrimination, that's the point of awakening. So Chan, the realization of the riddles in Chan is likened to that. It just is a great awakening of what actually is there, uncovering the mind from all the false thinking.
So when you hold on to one of those riddles, a lot of times I know I've tried it, and my mind will either drift away onto something else, and then I'll catch myself, or I'll just totally lose track of my being altogether. So is the purpose of the riddle to do that, or should one maintain focus on the answer, on the riddle?
Well, what happens is when we apply the riddle, or when we apply our concentration to the sentence, the riddle, what we're doing is we don't want to recite the sentence, but we want to take what the question is and try to find that answer in our mind. So, like we'll bring up the other one we just said, the one we said before. What was my face before I was born? So I'm not going to recite what was my face before I was born. What was my face before I was born? I'm not going to recite that. We're going to take the question, say it once, because you want to bring it up. It's like you call somebody, you got to type in the numbers for the telephone number, right? So we're doing the same thing. We're saying the sentence once, and then we're going to go to find the feeling of what it is to be investigating something, the searching. And that state of application, that feeling we want, that states we're looking for something, we're going to start with that first. And that's going to allow us to start bringing up more false thinking, which basically is when we recognize we have more false thinking, we are going to apply further. It must not be the false thinking, so I have to go a little deeper or go a little further. And then sometimes things just stop. There's no thought, and then all of a sudden more thoughts come. And then for about 20 minutes, you're still sitting there trying to sift through these thoughts going, let's keep going. But you're not saying anything in your mind. Your intention is that you're sifting through. So we will get taken by our false thinking sometimes, and our concentration will sway. But we just bring ourselves right back to the point, right back to the idea of what we're searching for. So the idea is basically not to get taken off, but it will happen anyway. Over time, by applying the mind and applying your concentration ability, it'll get stronger. The concentration gets stronger, and you'll be taken less and less, either by sensations, pain in the knees, pain in the legs, pain in the back, pain in the neck, headaches, stomach aches. You'll get a lot of different states, and then you'll start getting, who knows, seeing things, before your eyes. You start hearing conversations in your head, in your mind. These different states arise. Maybe you'll see what happens on Mars, and then all of a sudden you're back right on your sitting cushion or on your couch or wherever you're meditating. And you'll think, wow, that was great, and then you got taken by your state. So we really want to just let all those things pass through. And when they do happen, and we have the discriminating mind that says, oh man, I just got taken, damn it. Now what do I do? No, you just stop. And then you do it over again. Sometimes you just can't do anything else.
Are there other methods of Chan or Zen that don't require riddles? Like, can you just pour a cup of tea and be in a Zen state while you pour the tea, for instance?
Well, then we're going to look at what this Zen or Chan state is actually. And that basically is total mindfulness without discrimination. So if you're pouring a cup of tea and you're thinking, that smells so good, you're not in a state of mindfulness. We're taken by our senses. Being taken by the senses isn't mindful. It's confusion. For example, if my window right here in my office where I'm at shatters and I jump and I scream, I got taken by the sense of hearing. And if I go and cover my face, I got taken by the sense of sight. And because I covered my face, it's fear. And I fear I'm going to get hurt by the shattered glass. That means I have a view of self. But if my glass shatters and I just get up and run out of the way, that's different without discriminating. You know that glass is going to hit you in the face, you're going to get cut. And that's not a good thing, really. But there's not a thought of discrimination. That first initial reaction, that's that true reaction. Now, not the true reaction that states, oh my God, this hurts. It's that reaction that comes before you associate who is getting hurt and what is feeling that which you feel is painful. Like we said before, with the sun shining in the eyes, that state of being struck by that light before your mind starts to go through a whole bunch of things, that state is in that quote-unquote now. I'll just say now just for the sake of saying so. So when you pour in the cup of tea, and it's just you're in that, I hate using the word now because it's so against itself, but just for the sake of saying, we'll use the now, that word. But it's just an expedient to point to the non-discriminating mind for this moment. Another expedient, the word moment. You're pouring the tea, you're in it, and then that there is no false thinking. Then you're in the state of Chan. It is just what is being.
It seems to me almost contradictory, though, that you can be in a Chan state of full awareness, but yet if you get taken by the smell of the tea or the visualization of it, it seems like there's a contradiction in terms there. I know a lot of these things are hard to articulate, but just wondering what you thought about that.
Well, basically, when I give you an example for myself. When I'm making tea, and then I'm not just putting the tea leaves in a cup and throwing water in it. You're actually going through the motion of making the water be a specific temperature, and then pouring the water in the tea, and washing the tea leaves, and pouring the water out, and then re-pouring the tea back in again, letting it soak for a while. That whole process, if at any time I'm sitting there going, take a nice deep breath, that tea smells beautiful, the tingles I feel in my back because it's so good, and you're smiling and you're enjoying the pouring of the tea and all that stuff and the whole process, and what is actually feeling the quote-unquote good feeling of being in this whole type of motion of the tea ceremony, that's the thing that's taking you away from what you're actually doing. That thing that feels, I'm the one doing this. I feel so good. This is so enjoyable. This smells so nice. This is going to taste really good. That discriminating mind, that thing that states that there's another I, that there's something else out there that needs to be attentive, that thing is what's taking us away, and it's just our false mind, our false thinking. So when we're taken by that, we're not really within that state that states all things are without discrimination.
So Chan, again to reiterate, I guess Chan is a way to use the mind to defeat the mind, right?
There you go. That's good. It's the riddle, or that sentence, or huatou, is like a sword. Put it this way, it's cutting off your head. And it's not cutting off your head in the physical sense, it's cutting off the intellectual heads. the billions of heads we place on top of ourselves, on top of our other heads that we created by assuming that we knew what the hell was going on in the world and in our own self. It's just like in this, likened to this, a king takes his troops out to go fight a war, but he can't find his enemy. So his troops and himself are out there on the field looking for his enemy. He has no clue where to look. That's like the person who, a person who's not cultivating, or a person who doesn't have that much of an insight or even the slightest bit of wisdom, and just, runs all over the place. Or likened to one that just doesn't cultivate in the essence of, certain type of realization, or just realization in general. They're running all over, don't even know where to look. When you say, where's your mind? They're going all over the place. They're doing a meditation, doing a practice, or doing something, and they don't even know where their mind is. Chan is like, is saying, find your mind, man. It's there, somewhere here. Where is it? I'm not going to tell you where it is. If I point to it, you're not going to see it. And I'm going to point to a direction that you can't even find. Because the language of Chan is in a way that makes you cut off the discriminating mind, makes you cut off that dialogue. So when you have a Chan conversation with someone, it's like the person sitting next to you is going to look at you like, you can't even use your English well enough or your language well enough. What the hell is that? It's just something a little bit different, and it makes us drop our discriminating mind.
I know I've heard a lot of stories too about the Chan masters performing, I guess you call it crazy wisdom for lack of a better term, where they would do erratic things sort of to snap people out of their state. Maybe I just answered my own question, but why do you suppose they behave that way?
Well, those Chan masters in the old times, they actually had realized their inherent wisdom. So when they know the right time to do crazy things to people to make them awaken. Now, if a person who's not cultivating, comes to a Chan master, or a person who's realized or enlightened or whatnot. Now, just because you're enlightened doesn't mean you're fully enlightened as a Buddha. I mean, there's different stages of enlightenment too. So anyway, we're not going to get into that. That's much more another conversation. But these Chan masters can see and understand the person's conditions in their mind. They know the right time to say a certain thing to those who are investigating the mind. If you're not investigating the mind and someone, let's say, points a finger, they're going to look at you, what the hell are you pointing your finger for? Don't point that finger at me. They don't even know what you're doing. I do it all the time, not point the finger. I mean, I'm the least bit enlightened, but I mean, I say certain things to students, even my students for English or my students for martial arts, or those things for cultivation. Depending on what level they're at or what I see them capable of understanding, I'll say certain things, I'll do certain things, I'll pick on them, and it's only because I'm giving them already the tools to investigate the mind without them realizing they're doing it. So I'll know when certain time is right to say another thing that makes them realize another type of principle, another type of idea. So these Chan masters know that. But if it was to someone who doesn't have any type of practice under them, they wouldn't get the clue. So when someone does, when a cultivator does to a Chan master, and they point that finger, that Chan master had already attained enlightenment. He knows when that finger should go up. Then that person understands what that principle is. There's a story about that. I'll get to it after you say something.
No, I was just going to say, I know in my own experience, anytime I've tried to use Chan methodology to point people in the right directions, it's really backfired on me. And I mean, I'm nowhere near the level of a master where I can see people's conditions and whatnot. But yeah, I've had poor experiences, so I've actually stopped trying.
well, the ideas of the crazy wisdom from the old times, has become a fad in the quote unquote modern age now, where people can make little groups of others and have them follow the person or the supposed teacher offers this great ways and different aesthetic practices and crazy wisdom. They throw water on people or say strange things or do strange things that really, they have nothing to do with actual practice. They're not getting these people anywhere. And how is that possible? Because they're still investigating their false thinking mind without trying to break the false thinking mind. I mean, I wouldn't give examples because it'll just, ruin some people. You don't want to do that. I mean, but it's just that the crazy wisdom was a method, because it was a method used simply because it is not the ordinary way. When you get into cultivation, beware. The world is different after that one time you totally accept it in your life. The world is different. The glass shatters, it doesn't shatter. You know, it's raining outside. It's not raining outside. Who said it's raining outside? It's freezing outside. Oh, I'm going to go buy an ice cream cone and go eat it in the freezing weather and the snow falling all over me. And you know what? It's hot as hell outside. I mean, it could be just like that. The world is totally different. When you're a cultivator, things totally change, and perspective changes, and things seem upside down to other people when it's right side up for you. So in Chen, some methods that they used were one, throwing water on the person, screaming at you. Well, this is just like into just sitting meditation, you know, screaming at you. If you fall over a little bit when you're sitting and you hunch over a little, they'll tap you on the shoulder and then give you a whack on the back, you know. And they say crazy things, do crazy things. I mean, you're walking in the street, and in the old times, you know, you had little lakes and ponds here and there. The master would most likely push his disciple into the water and get him soaking wet, you know, or you know, make you eat food. You're supposed to be vegetarian if that's what the master requires you to, and the teachings you say so. And you're supposed to be vegetarian, and the master throws a little meat in your food, you know, and you start eating it, and to see your reaction. And what is your initial reaction? What is that? You know, these things can awaken depending on the person who's cultivating and the teacher who's using the method. You know, yeah, this is a story I have. I was told this story by a student, a disciple of Master Xuanhua. This is when my friend was left the home life many years ago. He heard the story that when Master Xuanhua would teach his class, one of the instances he was teaching, and all the students were in their sitting practice, meditating, chant, or whatnot, and he took out a Playboy, and he said, "Okay, everyone, open your eyes." And they opened their eyes, and some of them had their mouth dropped, some of them the eyes wide open, some of them laughed, some of them, "Oh my God!" You know, they made reaction. And he goes, "You guys still have no kung fu." You know, basically the idea was your mind got moved. You weren't even practicing chant. I don't even know what you're doing. You know, just to see where people are getting at. There's extremities you would do, but it doesn't mean you have to do the extreme practices just to say you are a Chan practitioner. Yeah, so I don't want people to get confused and say, "Well, I'm going to go teach someone meditation and throw water in their face." You know, maybe that will waken them up, but that's stupid. It's not going to do anything. When my students were sitting meditation in the hot weather, I wouldn't put the air conditioner on in the room. My old school used to get very hot, so they would be sitting down. And once I know they're getting deeper and deeper into their practice, where the sound around them is starting to slip away, you know, they can't even smell the flavor, the scent of the incense. They're getting very deep. I'll take out water gun. And right across the room, I'll hide behind the door and I'll spray them across the room. And after a few sprays, they don't move. I know they're not twitching. Their eyes aren't moving. You know, their eyelids are, nothing's happening. So they're getting somewhere. And just to get a little bit deeper and annoy them, I'll put it right at their nose. Or I'll put it right around their head and spray. And then that usually gets them to wake up. They go, "What the hell, man? I was trying to get into my practice." I said, "But you were trying to get into, which means you didn't even get close to getting anywhere near it. Now go back and do it again." And it feels like, oh, now I got to start over, that whole refreshed feeling. Oh, man, okay. You know, I just lost the feeling to go into it. That's when you do it. That's when you do it. So anyway, yeah, there's a little crazy practices one can do, you know.
It kind of reminds me of a story. It wasn't actually Chan related or Zen related, but I guess in thinking about it, it sort of is. I think it might have been Gurdjieff. He had one of his students, he took her out and gave her a shovel and said, "Dig a hole." So she started digging and digging and digging, and then she's, you know, real frustrated. "Oh man, I hate digging. I don't know why he's got me digging this hole. I don't see the purpose of this." And then he left her there for quite a while, and she kept digging, and then eventually she got to the point where, you know, she didn't really mind the digging. It didn't bother her, and she actually enjoyed it. She sort of got into the act of the digging itself.
That's
Yeah,
That's good.
it's sort of, I don't know if you would say that that's a Chan state, or maybe, I don't know if that's what he was trying to achieve in her, but seems very similar.
Well, here's a story that would be very similar to that. The sixth patriarch, Huineng, when he was still, he went to leave the home life, but he didn't take the precepts, didn't shave his hair off yet. He was still a lay person living in the temple, doing menial duties when he walked into the temple in China back, several hundred years ago. He walked in, he wanted to take refuge, he wanted to go study the Buddha Dharma under the fifth patriarch. So he gets in, and the fifth patriarch. They have a conversation. I'm not going to go into it too much yet. Anyway, they have a conversation, and the fifth patriarch sends him to do the menial tasks of cleaning, get water, and then pound the rice. But the difference was between this woman and Huineng was that Huineng didn't mind at all. Why? Because there wasn't a mind to mind anything with. He went in and he pounded the rice. At certain point, 6 months down the line, he actually tied a brick around his waist, a heavy brick, not just a small brick. I forgot what we call them. I forget them. I know them in Chinese. I forget them in English. A cinder block. That's it. He tied a cinder block around his waist, so he can help make him heavier to pound the rice. Okay, and he just was really getting heavily into it. He really got into it. So it reminds me of that story. And yeah, it would be very, very Chan practice, very much of a Chan practice with the story you just said, Oolong. But it doesn't have to be with the name Chan. It just can be a practice that helps you take away your false thinking or your flippant thinking.
So I guess one of the objectives of Chan or Zen is to achieve a non-discriminating mind. Um, I guess with that, could some people fall into a state of apathy where it doesn't matter, there's no good, there's no bad, so therefore nothing really matters, nothing makes any difference?
These states do appear. Most people feel like that is good enough for them. They don't realize that there's more to it. When they're getting in that state and they feel, oh, there's no self, so there's no karma. I can go do whatever I want. I can eat whatever I want. I drink whatever I want. I'll do whatever I want. Hit anybody, kill anybody. Just live their life as a couch potato or something, and they feel that it's totally okay. They got it. Those are states. Whenever there's a state that states you got it, or you feel like you got it, you didn't get it. It's a marker that says, keep going, you fool. That's what it's saying. Basically. I mean, I'll give myself as an example. When I was young, and I'm still young. I was in my 12 years old, 13 years old, and I would call my sister and ask her certain questions. She goes, well, you didn't actually get anything because you're still asking me the question. So if you're asking me this such and such question, you obviously are telling me you didn't even get anywhere close to what this truly means. So not that you have to ask me the question because you don't know. You're asking as though you actually know, but you're asking me to see if I know, and I know you don't know. So that's how our conversations have gone in the past. And I realized then when I, simply, like Lao Tzu says, when you think you know, you don't. That when I thought I did have something, it was so menial. It was so minuscule as to what is actually there that I didn't have anything to say that it was something indeed. It was nothing at all. And just I'll tell you, even up to this point, 3 weeks ago, because once I finished reading the Shurangama Sutra, I usually go back. I take about 2 or 3 months, letting everything sit in. I've taken notes, and I go read over my notes, and then I take a break of not reading any sutra and just doing practice and whatnot. Then I go back to it. So I'm constantly reading and rereading the Shurangama Sutra and going deep into it. Just 3 weeks ago, I was reading the last volume of the sutra first, and then I'm going to go read the rest of the sutra. So I finished reading the last volume of the sutra, which is the 8th volume under the Buddhist Text Translation Society, the one who translated texts under the guidance of Master Hsuan Hua. I read it, and as I'm reading about the last portion of it, it hit me. Even though I did have some, what people would have told me before were some good points and good insight, to certain things, and it really helped them. At that point, 3 weeks ago, I sat there and I looked at the sutra, And all I did was laugh my head off. My wife looked at me, "What's wrong with you?" And she knows when I go stuff like that, it's for a reason. She don't think I'm crazy. But she made it as a joke. She said, "What the hell's wrong with you, man?" And I'm just sat there laughing, and I didn't know what to tell her. And I went out to the front yard, and I'm hysterical laughing, and everyone's like, this guy is crazy, And I just couldn't stop laughing that whole day, literally giggling or laughing to myself, because I realized that no matter what I told people before, it was still just not enough to say it was something. It was just so little. And I didn't have to, it wasn't a slap in the face that time as saying, "You don't know anything, ha ha ha." It was just a realization that, damn, I don't know anything. It was great. It was such a liberating feeling. It was like a heavy responsibility taken right off me. And it was so good to say I really have no damn clue of what the hell's going out there, because everything I thought I knew, there's still much more out there. There's so much out there that's really to realize that what I had before was just nothing in comparison.
So how do you go forward from that point and try to teach people if you come to the conclusion that you don't really know anything anyhow?
Well, I literally tell the people who want me to help them with their practice, I say, look, good luck. I just tell them, good luck. I really feel honored you find me useful. Let's work on this together. Because I wanna get up there too. So if what I got you feel is something worth your time, I'll give it to you. But know that there's so much. It's just so minuscule. It's so minimal in response to, in comparison to what's really what's out there. The true realization that's out there. What I got is just nothing in comparison. But they'll accept it. That's because maybe they like it. Maybe they like what I say, and that's only because they got an affinity with me, or I got affinity with them. How does one go forth from that? And basically, it's very simple. When you get to a point where you really feel there's nothing else like, holy crap, I don't know anything. What the hell's going on here? What do you do at that point? Well, you keep practicing. Because when you get to the realization that you don't know anything at all, then you're kind of telling yourself, there's nothing that actually knows something. There's a lightness that comes over you that says, or that's like a quote-unquote marker. Don't make it as a personal marker. I'm just utilizing this term as an expedient for the actual thing. So I don't want anyone to hold on to this idea. But it's kind of like a quote-unquote marker that says, there's something less going on in there. It's good. Now, if you sit there and go, oh, well, maybe it's me, maybe I hallucinate, maybe it's just a small feeling. Now you're false thinking, you're breaking the whole flow here. It's simply just let it go, leave it alone, and keep going.
Does again, for Chan or Zen, I would assume that that's something you would probably benefit from having a teacher in, or somebody who's walked the path. Do you think it's necessary, or do you think you can practice Chan or Zen on your own?
You can get a general idea of how to do it from a book, but when you have guidance around you, someone who can show you, basically almost hold your hand in the beginning and then let you drop off the 30-foot roof, that's important. That's really important, because when they're letting you drop, they're going to go on the next floor under and catch you, so you don't hit the floor and splatter into pieces. You don't want to go crazy. So they'll drop you, and then they'll catch you. And then they'll drop you again a little bit more, and then catch you again. So they don't want you to fall into wrong states. And once you fall into states, by meaning falling, I mean you're grasping them, thinking that that's something you have to get back to again. Or it means you've gotten some skill, and whoo-hoo, I got something great. Woo, I'm good. That takes you away from the actual goal. It just puts a head on top of a head. After all the stuff I've experienced personally, the states I've attained, quote unquote attained, it doesn't make you any better than anybody else if you attain a state. Who cares? Big deal. It doesn't make anyone else feel good about themselves or the rest of the world. It's not important. So for me, the states that I've experienced or whatnot, they're only important for my students. If they bring up something similar, then I can say, oh, let me give you an example, and I'll use something I've experienced, and I'll tell them. But it's not something to go say, oh, well, I got this, 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 and this. You know, you should try to get that too. No, it doesn't work, and that totally goes into the direction. In Chinese, we say this sentence, 走火入魔, is going the fiery path and letting the demons enter, or entering the demonic way. You're just going the wrong way, basically. So things are just markers. States come and go. Chan would be just to don't focus, don't hold on those states. There's sayings too that say, when in Chan, when you're practicing meditation, when you see the Buddha, kill the Buddha. When you see a demon, kill the demon. You know, you come across a Buddha in the road, kill it. Come across a demon, kill it. It's not actually saying, who cares about the Buddhas, chop their heads off. Who cares about the demons, chop their heads off. No friggin' way. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean disregard the Buddhas whatsoever, or disregard the demons whatsoever. It means if they show in your mind, who cares? Once you jump to that vision you got, you've taken off your concentration. So it's unimportant of what comes before you in your mind. What's important is you applying your mind to what you're set out to do. Everything else is just clouds in the sky.
One other quick question I have. Normally when you think of Zen, the Japanese, I guess, you tend to sit in a posture called Zazen. What is the purpose of that posture, and why would that be more beneficial than, say, lotus posture?
I would say it's more of a cultural difference. You see, when Buddhism comes to another country, it just doesn't come as the way it was that it appeared when Sakyamuni Buddha began teaching. When he began teaching in India, it had the influence. Well, really, not really. It didn't have the influence, really, of Indian culture. It basically had to utilize what was there at hand so people can recognize the methods and accept them. So if one were to literally take out all the fluff or all the beauty around the cultural Buddhism from India, you'll get something very straight up, very direct, very raw, and very few people can handle that. And that's basically what Chan is. It's kind of like, here's a slap in the face. You felt it, right? Didn't you? There you go. That's the reality. Face it, and then go deeper. So it takes on cultural style in order to attract people. The Zazen posture, I think it's what they sitting on the heels. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, the legs, I think, cross behind them and they sit on the heels.
Well, I'm sure there's a specific reason for that type of function to the Japanese, given that their culture in the past is that they sat like that. You know, sometimes they sat a little bit off their heels and half their buttocks on the floor, half on the foot, you know. But culturally, they would sit on their knees, especially if you looked at the Japanese martial arts. Before they start practicing, if the sensei is talking, they're sitting in that posture. It's a respectful posture. It's a kneeling posture. So you could say possibly, I mean, I'm not a Japanese Zen practitioner. I'm not a practitioner of that kind of cultural Zen or Chan. But from that observation, what I see is that is also a humble way of applying yourself to the teachings of the Buddhist practice, and to the Buddhas, and even to the person teaching you. Humbling yourself, kneeling before them, offering up your mind and your putting down your ego.
Could it also be sort of the painfulness of it helps keep your mind aware too, maybe?
The painfulness keeps you awake and says, oh, my knees are killing me. My legs are killing me. My ankles are killing me. Oh, man, my heel is sticking in my butt bone, you know?
Yeah.
And that keeps you awake. So you don't fall asleep in that posture, which is pretty important, too. Because when you're sitting, you can fall asleep. We don't want to do that. Then we're not sitting in meditation anymore. We're just sleeping, you know? Also, if you want to look at it as a functional practice, the sitting on the heels are hitting the butt bone, or hitting the sit bones. You know, I forget the anatomical name for those, for that, the bone there. Excuse me for that. The heels pressing on that area is also pressing on a pressure point. I believe it would be one of the bladder channel pressure points. Don't quote me on that, but research if you wish to know what I'm talking about. And what that will do is improve energy to circulate throughout the bladder, urinary bladder channel, which rides up right along on both sides of the spine, going up the back, and it has its own trail also along the legs up to the toes. So to the small pinky toe, I believe, the inner part of the pinky toe, or I don't know. Last night I didn't sleep too long, so my memory is a little faded. Slept well, but not too long. So, if you want to research that, that's good. Those out there who are hearing this, like I say, if you ever hear anything I say, research. Don't believe anything I say. I could be lying. Who knows? So it could be that they're applying this pressure to that area. Maybe they're not thinking of pressure points, but what it can do is cause you to stay awake, rushes energy up to the head, allowing you to not fall asleep, not fall over. It could be something like that, possibly.
All right, so in closing, if people wanted to experiment with Chan Zen, would you recommend that they just kind of ponder that riddle, what was my face before I was born? Or
Well, pondering a riddle and then knowing how to actually apply it are two different things. Contemplation is important. Those who want to learn about Chan or practice it before they find a teacher, I would always say, please find a teacher if you're going to go into any cultivation methods, unless you are totally awakened in the matter of you can figure out the meanings. Your wisdom eye is open. You can figure out the meanings and certain things written or certain things said, and be my guest. Go out there and practice. You'll probably meet other teachers along the way that probably don't have a flesh body. Pretty interesting and pretty fun. But for those who don't have their wisdom eye totally open, get a teacher. You want to get books about it? Fine, get books written about monks who actually practice Chan meditation as a safeguard. Maybe a random person who writes about it, or a person who studies Buddhism in college, or studied a little bit and then decided to write a book. You don't know how in depth that can actually go, or if all of what they're saying is actually true to the practice. It could be 1% wrong, and that 1% will throw you right off, even if 99% of it was true. A little drop of poison in a big glass of water still makes the water poisonous. So I would always say get someone who's fully educated in Chan practice, understands it, and they'll guide you along the way. In the beginning, you can utilize this kind of method for practice. Simply, if you can sit in lotus, that's good. Sit in half lotus, that's okay. And if you can't sit in any lotus posture, sit with your legs crossed. Put something pillow under your buttocks to raise your spine a little bit. Saves pain in your lower back. Close your eyes slightly. Contemplate the nose. The eyes contemplate the nose contemplates the tongue contemplates the heart. And just keep doing that. It's a very stable, easy practice to do for the time being. It doesn't have you apply your mind for other things, just simply focusing on your breath, focusing on the nose, your eyes focus on the nose, to the tongue, to the heart. See what color your heart is. As Master Xuan Hua said in one of his other discussions on Chan, a guide about Chan practice, find what color your heart is. Is it black? Is it white? Is it red? Is it yellow? What is it? What's your heart look like? So you do that. You can do that. Simple contemplation. You apply your practice that way. The eyes stay closed slightly because it stops you from falling asleep, stops you from seeing visions before your eyes when your eyes are closed in your mind. So you start fading off, following them, or losing your focus, basically. And then when you get a little bit into it, hopefully you have the time, if you have the practice, the incentive to go do it, go find yourself a teacher for Chan. And he can take it from there. He or she can take it from there.
Well, thanks again, Lynn. That was great. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Thank you very much. I hope everyone gets something out of it. Like I say before, always research. Don't believe anything I say.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah. Don't believe anything anyone tells you, no matter how much they seem convincing. Whether, as my father would say, I don't care if it's God, Jesus, the Buddha, whomever. I'm still going to go find out for myself.
Well,
okay, who tells me? I'm still going to go for it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Lynn. Thank you for listening to Expedient Means with Lynn A. Wei on Time Monk Radio. Please tune in next week for a discussion on the common conceptions between Buddhist and Taoist practices. To quote the final chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the sage does not accumulate. The more he assists others, the more he possesses. The more he gives to others, the more he gains.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
Take care.